This morning, we welcome Dr. Chris Crain. Chris is the Associate Professor of Historical and Pastoral Theology, as well as the Director of the Doctor of Ministries program at Erskine University, just down the road a bit. Chris received his BA from Clemson, his Master's of Divinity from Covenant Theological Seminary, and his PhD from St. Louis University. Chris is ordained in the PCA Church, and prior to coming to Erskine, he served as a chaplain in the U.S. Army for many years. And even with all of these accomplishments, I need to say, Chris is also the son of two proud parents, Tommy and Linda Crain. So Chris, come, share with us.
Well, good morning. Pleasure to be here. It's an honor. When I think about growing up at Pelham Road Baptist Church, my parents, Tommy and Linda, they tell me that we came here when I was about 7 years old in 1978. I don't remember going to another church before this church. So from the time when I was about 7 till I left for the premier university in South Carolina, Clemson, I went to Pelham Road Baptist Church. There's many things that stand out to me when I reflect on growing up here. Many things that rise to the top, like a young boy trying to get out of the baptismal waters because he's afraid he might drown if the pastor holds him under too long. But three things stand out: food, fellowship, and faith. So, like a good preacher, I got 3 points: food, fellowship, and faith. I do have to give you a warning, though. This is based on my memory, so there might be some glitches as I've gotten older and the hardware and the software don't work as well, and I'm sure my mom will correct me after this is over. For instance, when I was a boy, the pastors were doctors. I kid you not. We had pastors named Dr. Marler, Dr. Haney. I asked my parents, why were they called doctor? And they said, well, after seminary, they went to some more schooling, and so they became doctors. Now, I'd heard that Jesus healed people, so that made sense to me. After them was Dr. Rich, and then now we have Dr. Roy. So if you didn't know, your pastor is a doctor, and if you want some medical advice, he might be someone you could maybe ask if you were feeling like it. When I was a boy, the church didn't have catered meals or one person doing the main part of the cooking, you know. This was the heyday of the church potluck, back when a healthy diet didn't matter as much. People brought all kinds of delicious and alien foods. I was first introduced to a myriad of Jell-O pies, congealed salads, and green bean casseroles. You could throw a rock and hit 10 casseroles. But like going to an all-you-can-eat buffet, there was always something that a young boy could find, especially the dessert table. If you were famished, you could always find enough to feed you at the dessert table. Well, when I graduated to the youth group, a different family on Sunday night might host us, and we would go to their house, and that's when I learned to fall in love with pizza rolls. One glorious night, we did a progressive dinner from house to house to house, where we'd have a little devotion and learn about spiritual things. But then we also did fondue, and I was introduced to cheese fondue, and then the meat fondue, and then the dessert fondue at different stops. And it was a lot of fun. When I was a boy, this is the way I remember it. Church was in a house. It was in a house that had a big living room that had been, like, the walls had been knocked down and been extended like about by 100 feet or 200 feet. So this building wasn't here, the building over there wasn't there, it was a house. And you could fold up the folding chairs and then set up nice tables so you could have those awesome potlucks I was telling you about. More than food, though, I remember the good fellowship that we had. When I was a boy, Pelham Road Baptist Church put on various programs that were designed to test my faith and character. There was church karate. A group of us would travel from here to Central Baptist, our mother church, and we'd learn spiritual karate. There was basketball. Again, we joined with some local kids from Central Baptist who were way better than me, at least. And I was terrible. Mr. Garrett, our coach, he tried to help me out, but that was a lost cause. I don't think I ever scored a goal, even though he made some plays for me, and I even got to the free throw line once or twice. And then there was my nemesis, baseball. We actually had a team. It was made up of boys of various ages, and so I was the little guy playing with older guys, and I was terrible. I was no phenom. I remember we were practicing out there one day, and a fly ball came my way, and I sought to catch it, but it hit me right on the mouth, and I lost a baby tooth. So I guess some good came out of it. Lots of things to test my faith and character. Mrs. Rich one time strong-armed me into dressing up like Daniel, and I had to stand like right about there and narrate this play that the youth group performed on Daniel and his 3 friends. What's that? It was a very trying time for me. I think she had me do that because I couldn't sing, but I could narrate. Somebody had told me that if you can't sing, if you just say elephant over and over, move your mouth that way, people will think you're singing. So I may have done that a few times. Now, all these experiences that we're trying were more than made up for by the fellowship I had with people like Mr. Garrett and fellow teammates. I remember hanging out with the older boys like Robbie Parker, me and Kevin Ashmore and Carl Cromer. We were like 3 amigos. But Robbie would drive us around, if I remember correctly, in a VW Rabbit. Maybe I get the car wrong. He loved to play Eye of the Tiger over and over and over again. And he would dazzle us with his ping pong and then tennis skills later on in life. Sometimes we'd go exploring those vast woods out there looking for Sasquatch. And one time the men took us on a trip in the Blue Ridge Mountains, a camping trip. And we had a great time out in the woods, and I learned how to skip rocks on a mountain stream. What I like, though, about Pelham Road Baptist Church is that there were folks of all ages, and they're super friendly and welcoming. When I graduated from the premier university of South Carolina, Clemson, I went on a 5-month mission trip to Ukraine and Russia. And Dr. Rich asked me to speak when I came back. The church had supported me financially and spiritually. So I came back and they heard a rambling speech about the Siberian tundra, borscht, and my experience of being able to share the gospel in old communist schools with murals of Lenin and Stalin right behind me, which is an amazing experience. And y'all were interested in what I had to say and very affirming. The main thing, though, that I heard here is about my faith and your faith, about Jesus Christ. I was given a solid foundation through Vacation Bible School, Sunday School, Royal Ambassadors, youth group, and Sunday worship. I was taught that faith makes a difference in somebody's life. It's not mere window dressing. It's not something that we do just for show. I professed faith in the 6th grade. When I was a boy, we had to go to Central Baptist for baptism. We didn't have a baptismal font. I was baptized there, and I remember at the same time that I was being baptized, there was a grown man being baptized. His name was Frank DeVita. So we were both a lot younger back then, though he hasn't aged a whole lot. But that always made an impression on me, that this faith we call Christianity is for the young and for the somewhat older than me. The rich and for the poor. It's for everybody. Though I've grown up, traveled the world as an Army chaplain, and just come back to Greenville in the last year or so, Pelham Road has remained a constant in my life. My parents have kept attending here, and they tell me about the goings on here. And I know that food and fellowship and faith are still important. I don't want to end on a sad note, but my wife Nancy and daughters Miriam and Eden and I appreciate your support during the tragic loss of my son, 22-year-old son Malachi, back in April of this year. People came to the funeral from all over, but many familiar faces from here as well. They supported us during this trying time. So I thank you for that. Thank you for your prayers. Paul says in Galatians, let us not grow weary of doing good, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up. So then as we have opportunity, let us do good to everyone, and especially to the household of faith. When I was a boy, church was about bringing faith to fulfillment and love. And now that I'm an older man, I think it still is. Thank you.